Now we do. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me for the first webinar of this school year, which is the YIC Webinar 26. Let me get my slides back where I can see them. There we go. Okay. So first of all, of course, welcome back and welcome to a happy new school year. I hope everybody had a nice summer and found some time to rest and take care of themselves, and that the beginning of your school year has been off to a good start. To get us off to a good start, I thought I would start with a pep talk from one of my favorite people. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video and then we'll get back to it.
I think we all need a pep talk.
Oh, so sorry.
The world needs to stop being boring. Yeah, you. Boring is easy. Everybody can be boring, but you're gooder than that. Life is not a game, people. Life isn't a cereal either. Well, it is a cereal. And if life is a game, aren't we all on the same team? I mean, really, right? I'm on your team, be on my team. This is life, people. You got air coming through your nose. You got heartbeat. That means it's time to do something. A poem. Two roads diverged in the woods, and I took the road less traveled. It hurt, man! Really bad. Rocks, thorns, and glass. My parts broke. Wah! Not cool, Robert Frost. But what if there really were two paths? I want to be the one that leads to awesome. It's like that dude Journey said, don't stop believing unless you dream stupid. Then you should get a better dream. I think that's how it goes. Get a better dream and keep going. Keep going, keep going, and keep going. Will Michael Jordan have quit? Well, he did quit. No, he retired. Yeah, yes, he retired. But before that, in high school, what if he had quit when he didn't make the team? He would have never made Space Jam. And I love Space Jam. What will be your Space Jam? What will you create will make the world awesome? Nothing if you keep sitting there. That's why I'm talking to you today. This is your time. This is my time. It's our time. We can make every day better for each other. If we're all on the same team, let's start acting like it. We got work to do. We can cry about it, or we can dance about it. We were made to be awesome. Let's get out there. I don't know everything. I'm just a kid. But I do know this. So everybody's doing to give the world a reason to dance. So get to it. You've just been pep talked. Create something that will make the world awesome. Play ball.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that little pep talk to get us started off on a good foot this morning. I know I love any conversation from Kid President. He always brightens my day. So today's agenda we have here, of course, I took care of our welcome. Next, I will do our mindfulness moment. And then I'm going to go ahead and introduce the USBE YIC team. We do have a new member, and I think there's enough mentors. We should just go ahead and introduce all of us again. After I take care of that, Julia's going to come on and talk to us about why and how we mentor in Utah's K through 12 schools. And after Julia, Benji is going to talk to us about the CNC data project. And then I'll hop back on to wrap up and share the post-training survey. All right. So for our mindfulness moment this morning, I thought I would take a step back and talk about why we do mindfulness or self-care, and the why, what, and how. So the first piece being the why. So I think for us, the biggest positive that comes from self-care is the educator and student relationships. I feel like when we're well rested and taking care of our mental health and our physical health, we are in a space where we can provide better for our students. So that helps us give the best energy to build those relationships with our students. It also shows a good example. You know, if we're setting boundaries and taking care of ourselves, it's a good example for our students. And as some say, emotions are contagious. So if we're in a good space, then hopefully that helps our students pick up that energy and get the excitement and be in a good space as well. The other benefit of doing self-care is it helps improve, reduces burnout and helps improve retention. If we're always functioning in survival mode, that definitely leads to burnout. And I know I can speak for that myself. But if we're practicing self-care, it helps us feel accomplished in our work, which leads to job satisfaction, which leads to retention. Another benefit of self-care is the student outcomes. And I think, some of our veteran mentors can share multiple stories about that. If we're at our best and we're providing mentoring in a good, healthy way, then we see good, healthy outcomes for our students as well. And the other benefit to self-care is if we are in a good space and we have our mindfulness practices on cue for when we're stressed out, it actually reduces how a stress affects us. Our stress doesn't just affect us, it affects our whole community. As I said earlier, energy can be contagious, and just like positive energy can be contagious, unfortunately, negative energy can be contagious also. So those are kind of the main points of why we do self-care. So next I want to talk about the what and the what we do self-care for. I like this little image here where it talks about that you can't pour from an empty cup, because if you have no energy to give, you have nothing left to give your kids. So as we know, there's many definitions that exist, but self-care is essentially paying attention to one's own physical and psychological health and wellness. And I've read many articles that talk about how self-care is an ethical imperative for individuals who are in helping professions, especially educators. We as educators are giving of ourselves, and not just to our family and our communities, but to individual students who have been through some trauma, and we can experience that secondhand. So I think it's very important for us to make sure we're taking care of ourselves. So that is the what. And then the how, of course, there are multiple varieties of self-care. Being that it's webinar 26, I can say we've done 25 different practices, if not more. But just as an overview, the main points of self-care how, first would be gratitude and compassion. And having activities like meditating, focused breathing, physical exercise, those things put us in a better space where we can have gratitude and compassion. And then specifically for gratitude and compassion, you can do journaling or mantras and some of those activities to practice that. So the next category would be mind and body activities. And I kind of alluded to that, if we're taking care of our mind and bodies, we're in a better space to take care of others. But there's simple activities such as going for a mindful walk and trying to be present in that walk and feeling the sunshine on our face or the wind or the rain, and smelling the crisp fall leaves. At least that's what's happening in my neighborhood this week. Or the texture of the grass if you've got your flip-flops still on. And then another area for us to practice self-care is opportunities for humor. I had done other trainings in a former life where one of the training mantras was that humor heals. It gives us a chance for levity, to break the tension, and definitely reduces stress. Plus, as I've read in other articles, it helps burn calories. So a good belly laugh is good for multiple things. And then another area is of flexibility and openness. And this is both body and mind as well. You want to be open to new learning opportunities, such as participating in today's webinar. But you might be learning about flexible physically, like I am with recovering of broken bones, or new meeting space, or new classrooms, or different things that kind of force you to be more flexible in different ways. So just remember, those are some of the self-care hows, and there are hundreds of activities online. If you happen to have a great self-care or mindfulness activity that you'd like to share with the group, I always invite folks to present on the webinars so that you're not always just hearing my perspective on the mindfulness. Okay, so that is our mindfulness for this morning. And next, I would like to introduce the Utah State Board of Education Youth and Custody staff. We all have this funny little game where we play alphabetical, and I went by last names today. Anyway, so first I have Julia Armstrong. And Julia is a youth and custody education specialist for the State Board of Ed. Julia has served youth in state's custody for over 15 years. Prior to her current role as an education specialist, she spent most of her career as a social worker for the Division of Child and Family Services. Julia has 3 crazy cool kids that she raises with her husband of 15 years. She enjoys spending time with friends and family, playing board games, pickleball, and watching The Bachelor. If you've had the opportunity to work with Julia in a training, I know you've had some fun conversations with her. Julia is always a pleasure to be with. Next, we have our team's fearless leader, Benji Carrier, who is the Youth and Custody Coordinator for the State Board of Education. Prior to being our coordinator, he was the alternative education principal in the Ogden School District, where he served as the principal for 6.5 years, and he loved every minute of it. Prior to that assignment, Benji was the principal of Ogden District's Youth and Custody program, where he oversaw Mill Creek, which is a long-term secure facility, and then observation and assessment, which is the short-term semi-secure facility. Mr. Carrier loved serving on the Utah Alternative Education Association for the last 6 years, serving as the president-elect, president, and now past president. He is also the National Alternative Education Board, he also serves on the National Alternative Education Board, where he's the Region 9 representative. Benji has 4 energetic and funny children that he loves to go on adventures with. He's an avid CrossFitter who loves to do anything active outside, especially biking, hiking, and skiing in the mountains. And I can attest to that. Benji is always up for a challenge, and he has raised my bar personally to be a little more competitive. All right. And then we have myself. I think most of you know me, Amanda Charlesworth. I have worked for the State Board of Education for over 25 years in various departments, including educator licensing and educational equity. I honestly started right out of high school and I've never left. My current position with Youth and Custody was created in April of 2020 to help Utah's local education agencies, which for those of you that don't know, that's just fancy words for districts and charter schools, better implement mentoring with fidelity, train new and experienced mentors on a regular basis, and expand mentoring services into other areas of at-risk populations, which is definitely happening. We'll be training 32 individuals Thursday and Friday this week, and most of which are outside of YIC. Anyway, back to my intro. I've been married for over 22 years to a talented and supportive partner in crime. Together, we have 2 amazing teenage children, 3 cats, and 2 dogs. When I'm not busy being the mom taxi, my hobby is my flower garden that encompasses my entire house. And now we have Heidi, who is the glue that holds the YIC team together. She's our executive secretary. And Heidi has been married to a wonderful guy for 26 years. Her older son is newly married and a police officer, and her younger son just started going to college. Heidi loves to scrapbook, collect bear figurines, precious moments, and willow tree figurines. She enjoys camping, fishing, and pretty much anything outdoors. She loves to spend time with her family and friends whenever possible. Heidi's dream vacations are to go to Scotland, Ireland, and London. Her favorite places to be in the mountains and at the Bonneville Salt Racing Flats. And I know as a team member, I love hearing Heidi's stories about the racing. All right. And now our new team member, David Salamai. And David, I hope I said your last name right. I'm still working on getting that out of my mouth the correct way. David just joined the State Board of Education Youth and Custody team last week, I'm pretty sure. He previously had the pleasure of working in juvenile justice and youth services for over 16 years in a variety of different positions throughout the state. He has a strong passion for service and helping others. David also loves philanthropy work and serving the community. He is the proud father of 3 children who are 14, 12, and 9. David loves spending time with his children by participating with and coaching their sports activities, which are basketball, baseball, and soccer. When he finds free time, he enjoys fishing the many rivers and lakes in Utah. And it's been refreshing to get to know David. He's not a Utah native, so it's always nice to have those conversations and hear a new perspective about the state I've lived most of my life in. All right. So here is a quick shot of all of our contact information, and you're welcome to take a photo or a quick screenshot if you like. This is, of course, posted on the schools.utah.gov/YIC website. And all of you should have my contact information. And if you need any of my team members, you're welcome to email me and I'll pass it on to the right person. Okay, now I get the pleasure of turning time over to Julia Armstrong for her to talk to us about the why and how of mentoring.
Thank you, Amanda, for that wonderful introduction. I think it's important for all of you to know who we are, because we want to be a resource to you, and we are a resource to you. And so please know you're welcome to reach out with whatever you need. We have a DCFS expert, we have a JJYS expert, we have an educator. So our team, hopefully, if you have questions, we can answer them. If you've got concerns, we can help fill those. So I'm really excited to be here this morning because I'm happy to see at least your names. Annie, I appreciate you. Paul, I appreciate being able to see your faces, because all summer long, I had to look at my team's mugs, and I just had to do that for the last 10 minutes too. And I really love my team, but it's nice to see all of you. I hope you all had a good summer and were able to take some time off and rejuvenate and take care of yourselves like Amanda talked about, so that you could tackle this year. I got to do some of that, but mostly I got to stare at other people's faces. If you want to put your screen on, I'd love to see your faces. It is good to see some of your names, familiar faces, familiar names. It's awesome. So we're going to talk about a little bit why and how we mentor. And that question Amanda's already posed today about self-care. Why do we do self-care? And I'm going to throw it out to you all now. So if you thought you were just going to sit here and multitask, surprise, it's me. So I'm going to make you participate in this webinar. And I'd love to hear your whys. Why do you mentor? Why do you support mentoring? Why do you work with this population of youth in custody? Maybe I'll start and I'll pick on some of my coworkers to kind of give their why, because you're not going to hear from all of us. You've heard from Amanda, you're going to see her again today. You'll hear from Benji, but I'd love to give a little bit of time to each of our team members. So my why is because I'm crazy, right? No. I graduated college. I knew I wanted to work with youth. And so I decided to do that through Child and Family Services. And I grew accustomed to them. I learned to love them, right? It wasn't necessarily immediate, but I love youth that are served by the Department of Human Services. They need people, and I need to be their person. And so I continue to do this work. So Dave, why don't you give us, Dave's worked as long as I have with this population. Dave, why do you work with youth in custody?
Because we're crazy. No, I'm just kidding.
We really are, truly. Each of you are probably a little bit crazy.
That's a great question. And then I think it's something that even some of the most difficult days we have working with some of these populations, and even sometimes working with each other, it's something that we have to remind ourselves, why. And for me, the why is the service part. It's the helping part. It's it's cheesy when we say they're the future, but it's true. They're the future. And you never know the potential and the things that these youth are going to be able to accomplish and achieve. And so they need people like us. They need people that's in their corner, that's rooting for them, that want to help them, want to serve them. And it'll be incredible to see some of the accomplishments that some of these youth are able to achieve later in life. So my why is to serve, is to help.
Love it. Thanks, Dave Salome, everyone. Welcome to the team, Dave. Heidi, how about you? Y'all will see Heidi's name at some point. And Heidi hasn't worked with youth in custody her entire career, but maybe Heidi, can you share with us why you do this job and you deal with this team?
Because I'm crazy. Just kidding.
Yeah.
No, it's like everybody has to be a little bit crazy to be normal, is what my mom used to tell us. But
I love that.
I really didn't have a why at first. I just wanted to come back to the state of Utah because I worked for them for about 6 years before I move on to other things. But as I've been in this job for almost 2 years, I enjoy working with my teammates and I enjoy hearing the stories and the struggles that these kids go through. And it's opened my eyes. My 2 boys are pretty much grown, and one is on his own and one is almost on his own. And so it's kind of nice to give back to the community as much as I do, even though I don't work with them directly like Julie and them do. It's just really nice. And it's opened my eyes to a lot of troubles that's in the world that I was not aware as a parent. So I just enjoy working with it. And I always like to help people out no matter who or what age you are. So
Appreciate that. Thanks, Heidi. I appreciate your perspective. And I just thought as you were talking, like there's value behind what we do. And we don't always know why we get involved, but that why becomes pretty clear as we really are able to dive into the experiences of the youth that we serve. I appreciate those that are chiming in the chat. If you haven't looked in there, let's see, Jessie Ann, this is a face that I know, or a name I know at least. I do it because I want to give back to the community and be an adult I wished I had when I was young. Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Annie, hi Annie, nice to see your face. Because they need heroes and people who care. They have literally lost everything and need to feel connected and capable, 100%. Susie, I love seeing the continual growth within each student I work with. Luis, oh, I know Luis, we've met. It's my opportunity to pay it forward. I was fortunate to have mentors early in my life who helped me. Anyone else want to throw in the chat why you do it, or take yourself off mute and share why you do this job? I might give you another opportunity here in a second, but please share if you've got something. Thank you, Andrea. It's fulfilling. I feel like I'm making a difference. That's awesome.
From a practical standpoint, this happened 2 days ago. If we didn't have the mentors that we had in place, we would be making poor educational decisions that were not supportive of the student need. We were very fortunate, and things that we would never know any other way happened to come through mentors and all of the administrative work that we're doing on behalf of these youth. So connecting all those dots is really important so that we can make good supportive educational decisions for these students.
Yeah, I appreciate Travis. And that reminds me too, when I applied for this job, I applied because of you, 100%. I applied because I wanted to work with mentors, because I needed you as I was working at DCFS so much to make sure that students were getting their needs met at school. And sometimes my mentors were getting their needs met outside of school. One of these days, Amanda, we really should highlight all of the things our mentors do that are above and beyond what their scope of work is, right? I hear stories all the time about nonprofit organizations that you've started to make sure kids get the right type of sleeper, or just all sorts of things. It's amazing. It's amazing what you do. So thanks, Travis, for that reminder. We need you to make sure students' needs are met. Nacho, thank you. Julia, why are you lying? Now you're just giving Travis a big head. I know, right? Travis, like he needs it, right? I just need to tone it down a little bit. Perfect. Okay, those of you that haven't shared or are still thinking about your why, we have a couple videos today, and I didn't want to be heavy on videos, but these are so awesome. And why would you want to hear me talk when you can hear a student speak? And so, Amanda, if you want to move on to that next slide and share this video, and maybe this will ignite some why in your mind too.
You couldn't show any weakness. You had to become a man very quickly. I was born and raised on the east side of Buffalo, New York. I'm one of 8 children. I was raised in a single parent home. My mother raised me and my siblings by herself. My grandfather, he was never in my mother's life, and my grandmother, she battled with drug abuse, so she died at a very young age. My mother was forced to become a parent and an adult at a very young age, and she juggled with that, and it was very difficult for her at first. My father was never really in my life, so my mom really had to manage and raise 8 children by herself. Growing up was very dysfunctional for me and my siblings. We were both physically and verbally abused. We would go to school and I would have bruises on my arms, and the teachers would notice that. And before you know it, Child Protective Services was involved. I think I was about 8 or 9 when I first entered the system. That's foster care, and my siblings and we were all divided into different foster homes. I ended up being bounced around from different foster homes. I went in very optimistic and energetic and happy, and then I became very introverted because I was constantly being placed in a temporary position. Throughout my entire experience, I was in over 10 different foster homes, and it was hard for me to open up to people that I was only spending a short amount of time with. I remember being 14 years old, and my social worker, she came and got me from high school, and she told me she was taking me someplace for the weekend, and that place was a detention center. I ended up spending 3 years of my life there. One misconception about people who are in foster care or are in detention centers is that it's the child's fault. Everyone would ask me in the detention home, why was I there, or what did I do, or things that I need to work on, but it was really, it should have been asking what our parents did or how we felt. We were just treated as, numbers. And I believe that I was there so long because I didn't have anywhere else to go. I couldn't go back to live with my mom, and I had nobody else to take me in. So I really just had to spend my teenage years there. The detention center, it was very bad. As soon as you come in there, I got into fights, I got jumped, I had to hold my own, I fought, I cried, and I held my pride. You couldn't show any weakness. You had to become a man very quickly, and I had to learn that at 14 years old. When I was 17 years old, I was discharged from this place, and I immediately enrolled in public school at Lafayette High School, where I was senior class vice president. I played sports like track and field and cross country, as well as basketball, and I was the first in my family to graduate high school. I then went on to attend Buffalo State University, and I received a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I'm the first in my family to graduate and go to college. I am a living proof and living testament that just because you are in foster care does not mean you can't be somebody. I believe that you can be anything and anyone you want to be, and you can achieve any amount of greatness as long as you can conceive it in your mind. I am doing all these things that I would have never imagined in a million years that I would be able to do. And ultimately, my relationship with my mom has gotten way better over the years. We both have grown as people, and I am so proud of the woman she's become. Life is all about perspective. I blame my mother as a child for being a bad parent, but I really understood that she didn't know how to be a parent at first. She just did what she could. All of my friends and my peers, they can look at me and they've never realized or known what I've been through until now. I prevailed through it all, and everything, it just really made me the man I am today.
Yeah, why do we do this, and why do we do this for so long? For that kid, right? That kid that has experienced a lifetime of experiences in a short amount of time and has come out on top. And I love this too, because it doesn't just talk about like the hard things, but he talks about how his relationship with his mother is better, and his, he's a successful person. He went into criminal justice. Some of you said like, you're giving back. The student is doing the same, or this once upon a time student, now successful adult, is doing the same. And so I loved that. And it just reminded me again of why I worked for 15 years for the Division of Child and Family Services, why I continue to listen to hard things and to deal with hard scenarios, because of students like that and those successes that we get to experience in this field. We are fortunate to be able to see that. Anybody else want to throw out a why, something that was ignited through that video before we move on? Dawn, it's good to see you.
I noticed that Susie put in the chat that she wants to make a difference.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Julia, this is Evian.
Yeah, hi, Evian.
I just keep thinking these kids need hope. Like, they come from such a place that they don't have hope in the future. And I think this kid just found hope, and he's pushed through all of that because there was hope. And so I think as a mentor, our biggest job is to give them hope and give them a pathway to get to that destination where they can be successful and feel confident in themselves.
I love that. And then you reminded me, I was talking to a mentor the other day, I guess it's been a couple months ago before summer hit, and they were getting ready to speak at a graduation of one of their students, and that student did some terrible things and will be probably in an institution for the rest of his life. And she kept thinking, like, what am I going to talk about? What is going to bring this kid some hope, knowing that he's facing the rest of his life behind bars? And she was so insightful to just talk about, like, to talk to him first and get some hope that he had about what his life was going to look like there. And anyway, it was incredible. So I appreciate that, Evian, because even in the hardest scenarios, right, there can be some positivity. Thank you for that. Anyone else?
Okay. Hi.
Oh, hi, Andrea.
You're about to move on.
You're
I
fine.
think, yeah, that it just takes one person to make an impact in their lives, and you never know if it's you or somebody else, a coach, a teacher, whoever it is that could give them that guidance and direction, you know, like sports or whatever it is that could lead them to a better, give them something to get excited about and work towards.
I love that. Thanks, Andrea. And you make that good point. Like, your job as mentors is to connect them to that, right? To help them find that person or that thing. It might not always be you, but you can always help facilitate that process and help in such a huge way. I have found that students want someone to believe in them, give them encouragement, give them time and attention. Thank you, Ibiel. I'm not sure who that is, but, or Labiel. Absolutely. Kids sometimes just need you to know their name, right? Like, just walking by them in the hallway and you know their name goes a long way. It goes a long way with me. I show up to, you know, something, and if somebody knows who I am, I'm like, okay, I belong here. I can be here. Somebody remembers who I am. I assume nobody does, but that person did. And so now I can belong. So I appreciate that. Amanda, we can go ahead and move on. And please, as you have comments or questions or anything, I encourage you to bring those up. Here are just some statistics that you've all seen in your Check and Connect training. And if you haven't yet, you will, because that will be your future. But here are just some of the unfortunate reasons why we are mentors, right? Because look at our graduations rate, great graduation rates. We have USBE, that's the general population. And then we have our we need to fix that, JJYS, because they are now Juvenile Justice and Youth Services. And we have our DCFS students that clearly our graduation rates are not as awesome. And I dare say that Amanda and we reached out to some of our people to get some updated slides, and I think they're even lower than that. There's a couple different ways we get some data. And so this, I think these are actually pretty generous in this slide. You can move on from there. Obviously too, our absenteeism for our students is really poor. We need you. This feels really heavy, but we do this because we need it, right? The general population at USBE is pretty low, and then look at our DCFS and our JJYS population. And here's the thing, most of you are serving as mentors, students that are in DCFS custody. If you have the capacity and the ability to serve those students that are in JJYS, that are being served by JJYS, we encourage you to do that as well, because clearly there's a need for those students too. How do these numbers compare to pre-pandemic data? That's a good question, Luis. I don't know. I want to say it didn't change much, and we were surprised by that. I think we expected to see some big drops, but it's actually been pretty stable for our kids that are in state's custody. Amanda, you might know better to answer this question.
Your instinct was correct, Julia. That is something I have personally celebrated during the pandemic. I think personally, our mentors' involvement is what made the difference for these students. And while, you know, we've talked about that our graduation rates and our absenteeism isn't great, it's not as bad as it could be. I think because the mentors are there to support the students. And I think initially when it first hit, some of the mentors were just elemental in the students reconnecting the school.
Yeah, I think where a lot of kids got lost and fell through the cracks, our kids did not, right? Because even though maybe you couldn't see them in person, it was amazing how creative you as mentors were in doing Zoom calls and drive-bys and text messaging. Like it's been really awesome to work with you because you do amazing things. Great question. I think we have another slide here with some fun statistics. These are never my favorite, but I think it's helpful. And so as we look at this is a statistic also we share in Check and Connect. And this is the most current data. There is a lag. We're still working with some of these websites here to get some even more current data. And I'm not going to read all of these to you, but I kind of want to look at these statistics and think about them on the flip side, right? So when we look at 46% don't graduate from high school, what about the 54 that do, right? 54% of our kids graduated from high school. Without Check and Connect, the national data is that we increase, with Check and Connect, you increase outcomes by about 24%. So think about how much smaller that could potentially be, right? Without you. And so we just continue to do this work. 25% are incarcerated as adults, 75% are not. So that's really positive. There is this horrible history, right? School to prison pipeline that we've had to deal with through the years. But there are those success stories, like we just saw this young man's success story, that can keep us motivated. 45% experience homelessness. 55%. Look, I can do math. I can do some. 55% don't. So whatever way you want to look at that, there is a need for you. There's a need for Check and Connect, and there's a need for serving this population of students. So let's move into the what or the how. I think that's what's next. Oh, there was another piece there. This is not an unfamiliar chart to you. It might be for some of you. Dave's new to our team. It might be new to him. And some of you might be new to Check and Connect. And in our Check and Connect training, we dive into this for 2 days. But I don't want to sit here and preach to you what you already know. But I'm going to introduce you the 4 non-negotiables of Check and Connect, right? The 4 key components of Check and Connect. I'm going to briefly talk about them, and then we're going to do some breakout groups, which I know you're all very excited about. So the 4 things we absolutely need with Check and Connect is we need you. We need a mentor. If we don't have mentors, game over. We don't do this anymore. And so we need you, and we need you to be ready and available, and we need to serve you as well. And we'll talk later about some things that we're doing here to help support you as mentors. But absolutely, in order to do this, we need a mentor. The second piece of this is the check piece. This is everyone's favorite part, right? The part that you sit at your desk and you look up data and you write data down and then you turn it into Amanda. That's everyone's favorite part. I know it is, because you all do it so well. The check piece is so important, right? That looking up students' data, identifying where some gaps are, so that as you go connect with the student, you know where you need to fill. You know what gaps you need to fill, and you know maybe a little bit better how to connect and how to help that student be successful. So that check piece, if that's an unfamiliar scenario to you, please reach out to us and you'll get more familiar with that as we go. And we're going to talk more specifically about check as we go. Connect is that intentional, purposeful interaction with the student, right? We first check, we see all of that stuff, and then we connect. You can't do one without the other. And then we connect with those students. And that could be the high in the hallway, but it also are specifically those weekly interactions that you have with them that can be so meaningful. And finally, there's the family engagement component of this. However you're able to, in your school district, engage with families, we encourage that, whether that's through home visits, attending child and family team meetings, calling parents on the phone or foster parents, or attending court, whatever you can do to help that bigger picture by connecting with families, the better. So those are those 4 key non-negotiable components to check and connect. So what I want to do now is, instead of sit here and pretend I know a lot of stuff, I want to hear what you know about these things. So I'm going to ask, I'm posing 4 questions. We're going to split you into 4 groups. And when you get into your group, you'll be assigned 1, 2, 3, or 4. And I'm going to have you answer these questions. If you're in group 1, you are the mentor. You're going to answer this question. What attributes have you admired in a mentor? Okay, what attributes have you admired in a mentor? Jot these down if you want to. We're going to do our best to make sure that they follow you to your breakout rooms, because I'm sure some of you will get in there and be like, now what are we supposed to do? Because that happens every time. Question 2 is going to be, or group 2 will answer the question on check, which is, what data points have been particularly helpful to you? So what about check do you like, and what has been helpful? The third question will be connect. What impact has your connection? Amanda, did you put this? Oh, they're in the chat. So if you want to look in the chat, you can see what I'm reading. What impact has your connection with students made on you and your students? Because guaranteed, it's not just your students that are benefiting from what you do. Even the things I heard earlier today, sounds like you're benefiting pretty well too. 4th question, family engagement. How have you engaged with families? What creative strategies have you come up with? I'd love to hear, and I'd love everyone else to hear what you're doing regarding family engagement. Okay, so those are the 4 questions. They're in the chat. When you get to your breakout rooms, you're not going to see them anymore, right, Amanda? So we'll do our best to follow you into each room and throw these questions in the chat.
Right. And
Okay.
if you have any issues, just send a chat message to me as the host, and I'll put it in as a message to the group. So I'm going to go ahead and open those breakout rooms now. You should see a pop-up on your screen that says join, and it was just automatic. So luck of the draw today is who you'll end up with. And like Julia said, just do a quick introduction and then answer your questions.
Oh yeah, network. Take the time to meet each other too. That's a good idea. We'll give you about 10 minutes.
That's what I was going to say. And do you want them to pick a spokesman?
Oh yes, thanks for that reminder. Pick a spokesman, because when we come back, we'd love to hear what you guys talked about. And so you can share with the rest of the group. That would be great. Thank you. Pick a spokesman.
So the rooms are open, and I'm starting the 10-minute timer now. You're welcome to move into the rooms. So Julia and Heidi, you two are co-hosts with me. I can put you into a room, or you can stay here in the neutral space. What do you prefer?
I think I'll stay. Should I follow into each room and paste the questions?
I was just going to do that. Let me broadcast a message. Thank you for reminding me.
I'll just stay here.
Okay, fair enough. And then the rest of our friends, if you're just joining us or multitasking, you'll have a pop-up menu to join your breakout room if you're going in. Otherwise, you're welcome to stay with us in the neutral space. And while we have 10 minutes, I'm going to cheat and check a few emails.
Okay, no, that's fine. I'll just hang out in case people come back.
recording. And yeah, the room should be closing and everybody should be popping back in.
Okay. Welcome back. I think we should all be about there. Okay. I hope you had a nice little conversation with people you've never met before, or some that you have, made some new connections as well throughout the state, because we know that people need people and we also need people, right? And so this is one of those opportunities to find new people. So let's hear from you if you're okay to do that. I hope you all got the instructions about finding a spokesperson in each of your rooms. So if group one wouldn't mind just giving us some highlights as to speaking about what attributes that they admire in a mentor. And if you didn't pick someone, I'll volunteer someone. Let's see, we had Paul in that room, Travis, Annie. This is a good group. Ann Jones, like these are some of our stellar folks. Oh, Annie, you are on mute. Want to unmute yourself and take one for the team?
All right. I really admire this group too, because, you know, I know Anne, and they talk about knowing the school process was one thing, willing to go the extra mile to figure out how do things function and make sure the kids are aware of what their options are. And then the next one is being the mama bear or the papa bear and being able to say, okay, how do we advocate for these kids or teach them how to advocate and get them to the right person? Know the options, thinking outside of the box. You know, you have to be creative sometimes. These kids have lived through so many hard things that they don't trust anybody. And so you have to think, how do we help them find a place where they fit? The other thing that I talked about was you show up, you're there. When you promise you're going to do something, you do it, you figure it out. And working around the trust issue is that you stick with it and you're there even when it's not comfortable, and you help them figure it out. Anybody else want to add something I missed?
What you said that really spoke to me, Annie, is that reliability piece, right? I feel like everything you kind of mentioned came back to like being reliable, being confident, being able to share information, being able to find resources, showing up where you say you're going to be. I think a great attribute of a mentor is that reliability factor, and me knowing that I can go to you and I can get the information I need, or I can at least get the help that I need, or even maybe just sometimes the comfort that I need. I think that goes a long way. I think about my own personal mentors and the people who I consider mentors. All those things you just talked about are absolutely imperative, I think, for a mentor for me to stick with my mentor, right? And to continue to go back to them. Thanks, Annie. Any other thoughts or questions or comments about mentors and attributes of mentors that are essential?
Julia, this is Evian again.
Hi.
I feel like the most important thing we can do for anybody that we mentor is let them know that we believe in them.
Yeah.
Like we're there, we're doing what we need to, like you said, we always follow through, but they need to know on a deeper level that when they don't believe in themselves, we believe in them and we know that they can accomplish whatever it is that we're mentoring them through.
Yeah. We need to believe in them, and they need to know we believe in them. And we actually need to believe in them, right, Evian? Like sometimes I think we can get a little bit pessimistic, like you talked about, Annie, like even when it's hard, even when it's difficult, even when it's uncomfortable, continually coming back, finding those positive things that you can believe in students, you know, regarding. So thank you for that.
Can I piggyback on that a little?
Absolutely.
I find like every now and then I'll throw out the question like, I can't remember how I phrase it, like, do you know your worth, or what do you like about yourself? Where are you good at? Or, something like that. And it's like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you go, you are, you know, and I try to encourage them and help them to believe that they are just, you know, a special person and their life matters. And so it breaks my heart when
Yeah.
they kind of go like, they don't see their worth, they don't see their value. And so I try to help them along with that.
Yeah, I think that is so true, Andrea. So often these students can't see past this moment, right? And we often get involved in those difficult moments, and helping like believing in them and then helping them believe in themselves. It's a journey for sure. Thank you. That stick-to-itiveness, is that a word? I feel like I've heard that somewhere before. I don't think it's a word, but I've heard it somewhere. We just got to stick with it, right? The stick-to-itiveness. Huh? All right. I'm going to own it. I'll do it. Okay. Group 2, let's hear from you. I know who was in that group too. So do we have anyone willing to chime in?
So that's the check, right?
Yeah, so the check.
Okay.
What data points have been particularly helpful to you? And Dave, you're the perfect person to talk about this because you don't even know what those are.
I'm gonna wing it. No, I'm just kidding.
I love it.
We had a great group and we had some great insight and some great examples. Yeah. I'll kind of share what the group talked about, and then we cut off at the end, but we had examples for both. And the
Awesome.
2 things that were brought up was attendance and grades, and we had examples for both of those. And so I'll have those people share those examples in a second here at the end. But I think that the thing that I loved about this group and what they talked about was how they're using the data. And so it's nice being a part of this, because this was kind of my big task for JJYS, is to figure out how to, you know, collect data on behavior and utilize that in our team meetings and in our functions. And so to hear this perspective and how they're using it the right way. They're using it to celebrate successes in the good and in the bad. And I think that's critical with any data, because data can help you make decisions. They can help, you know, you can see things on a piece of paper a little bit more clearly on the direction someone's going, or the impact of what are, you know, some of the things we've implemented in our programs have on these youth. But we need to celebrate the goods and the bads. And so I think that's kind of the overarching philosophy that we had in that group, and I think that's exactly what it should be used for. Can we have those individuals share, or maybe it was the same person, share those examples they used for how they use data for attendance and for grades, please?
I'd love it.
So this is Jessie Bodell. I'm from Canyon School District. I shared about attendance, and I was working with this high school girl who did not go to school very much. And so I had shown her attendance. And one of the times that I was showing her, she's like, "Oh, I've been to school every day this week." And I said, "Actually, sweetie, you've only been like 2 days or something like that." And she's like, "Really? I thought I've been here every day." And so we were able to find out why she wasn't coming to school. And it was because she had to babysit her little sibling. And so I was able to help them find support so that they could find, like, they qualified for childcare, like to be supplemented. And so I was able to take that data to the mom and show her, hey, she is missing all the time because she has to do this. Is there any way we could get her into daycare? And then we were able to sign her up and get them help and support. And so little by little, she started attending to school a lot more, and to the point where she was actually attending every day. And so it was pretty amazing to see that happen, just by being able to show the data.
I love that. I love that you have the data and then you did the data dig, right? Like, that's the best part, is you get the data, you dig, and you find out why the data says what it says, and you do something about it. Great example, Jessie. Thanks. All right, Dave, back to you.
No, that's what it's about. And there was another one on the grades. We cut off a little bit, but it sounded really good. I'd like that person to share that example.
I think that was me too, and then it cut out. Sorry.
No, please, please share.
So last year I got a student and she was a 4.0 student. And then she went into foster care and she then had mostly Fs, some Ds. And so I was able to advocate with her to the teachers, and I showed them how she had a 4.0. And so the teachers were able to work with her past the deadline of the quarter, and they gave her a pass-fail, so it didn't mess up her GPA. And she was able to do the work that they gave her, and she was able to get back on track, so it didn't mess up her GPA. And so she was super excited because, you know, she was just devastated being in foster care. Yeah. And that she had worked so hard, and then all of a sudden she had all these things out of her control. And so it was really awesome to have the teachers change it to pass-fail so she didn't lose that 4.0.
Yeah, that's great. Again, I think that just shows how we can use data to help us and help these students. And the other piece I wanted to throw in there with what Nacho was saying, you know, sometimes these kids, you know, they're coming into you know, into these programs, and they are in these trenches, and they're dug deep into these, you know, these trenches, and they're struggling, and they have grades that, you know, maybe in society they would, you know, they wouldn't be acceptable, or they wouldn't be, hey, you're not getting the A's, the B's, or even the C's. And, you know, the reality is that, you know, these, you know, if kids are getting D's, you know, I was giving the example, my college coach told me, you know, D's get degrees. I don't know if my parents would have liked that, you know, him saying that, but in reality, it's true. You know, we are trying to show these youth that, you know, goes back to that hope, right? We're giving them hope that you are making incremental progress. You are moving towards the goal of getting a degree. And so we can show them, like, hey, look, you're this many credits away. You're making this progress, and you're doing well. And so I think it's, again, data can be used to kind of paint that picture for everybody that's involved. And yeah, no, I think it was a great group and great conversation. So I appreciate everybody in there.
Yeah, it sounds awesome. And who would have thought that data would make me emotional, right? As Jessie was talking, like, I really got emotional because without Jessie's intervention, that girl would have failed those classes, and who knows, right? Like, it's amazing the difference you can make and the impact that data can have on your actions, and just showing that data can make an impact on teachers and parents and students. And Dave, I appreciate your words. So thank you. Cheers to data, and cheers to a new school year. This is awesome. Okay, let's move to Connect, room 3. Do we have a volunteer?
Hi, my name is Colette Lobb. I'm with the
Hi.
Weber School District.
Welcome, Colette.
We talked about how, you know, connection really is a key. Working with the students, you need to make that connection. And some students are difficult. They have walls they put up around themselves, and sometimes it takes time to get through those walls to make that connection. But when you do, it's pretty amazing when you make that connection with your students.
Break them down.
Yeah, they really start to talk about things, and they will open up and talk to you. And I feel that we talked about how there's a caring between us. We care for each other. And you know, a lot of connection is consistency and being there, always being there. When you say you'll be there, be there. And showing that you care for them. Attend their choir concerts, go to their ball games. I've even attended a funeral. Wow. And help them work through their problems. You know, when you help them work through their problems, I think it solidifies that I'm there for you. I will do what it takes to help you get through this. We also discussed how hard it is to lose students after you build that connection. It's really difficult when they get moved, and you've built this relationship of caring for each other. And you can have a student that you had years ago, and you're still wondering, how are they? What are they doing? You know, we wish there was a way you could track that and, you know, see how they're doing. And but you
I
know,
may have years later Facebook stalked some of the students I worked with. Is that recorded, Amanda? Sorry, continue, Colette.
but that was pretty much our conversation, but the connection is so important, and it's key to working with these students and opening up those lines of communication with them and letting them know that we're there for them 100%. We're backing them. We are there for them. And you know, I was just going to look it up. Hold on one second so I word it correctly. Weber School District has a theme this year, and it's "We see you, we've got you." And I feel like that's connection right there, letting those students know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love when people say that phrase, like, I see you, right? Whether it's good or bad. But I always love that, because like, okay, we see you and we get you. Like I really like that. I have nothing to say about it other than I like it. That's great.
I don't know if anyone from our group has anything else to add to that, but it's open.
That connect piece is really like, that's the fun part of this job, right? I think the data is fun, but the connect, I know, is why people probably get involved initially, because they want to connect, whether they want to make a difference, like some of you have talked about, in their own lives, or they want to have fulfillment a difference in their students' lives, or have fulfillment in their own lives. I think that connection is so invaluable. It's the fun part of the job. And I love that you got to go to a funeral, or you got to go to a choir concert. How awesome is that? Like, what are you doing for work today? I'm going to a choir concert. Sounds like a pretty fun gig. Any other comments about Connect? Ways that it's impacted you or others? All right, let's move on to family engagement. The question, how have you engaged with families, or what creative strategies have you come up with to engage with families? So anybody in that group that is our spokesperson? I'm that person that will always just do it. And I get angry about it sometimes, right? Like, fine, nobody else is talking. So just know I'm commiserating. Any of you that want to chime in?
Thanks, Benji. Appreciate that.
Okay. Oh, and Dawn, you're a great person to be a spokesperson.
Oh my gosh. Okay,
let's hear all about it.
So in our group, we had a couple new mentors, and they talked about how they're loving getting to know the kids. They haven't had a lot of interaction with families yet, but they are learning from this webinar today and from those that are in the different groups. I talked about, I always talk about this because it's just so dear to me, but talked about my being a foster parent, my husband and I fostering for 20 years, taking on these children in our homes. And that video that you showed at first just tugged at my heartstrings, because these children, everybody thinks they're just naughty children and they're just in the system because of themselves. There's a whole gamut of reasons. And for 20 years, I learned most of those reasons. And when I was a foster parent, I really tried so hard to include bio families or kinship placements, or wherever they were. I tried so hard to make them feel like, you know, you guys are their family. I'm just here to help you guys reconnect. And so I tried really hard to relationship build with those bio families, and just take the threat out of, you know, I'm the foster parent, we're all in this together kind of thing. So I've kind of taken that into this job and talked about like making sure that the connections are there with the foster families or kinship placements so that they feel included. So they're the most knowledgeable because they are in the trenches of these children, their grandchildren, foster children, whatever, but they're all in this, and they need to feel included. And so that may be emails, phone calls, a text, whatever, just to ask them their opinions or ask them if they're okay or if they need help with anything. And then Michelle, one of the mentors that works with me in the Granite School District, brought up some awesome thoughts. And she talked about how we're finding more and more guardianship placements are being placed with grandparents, and how it is so important for us to make sure that we're reaching out to these grandparents. A lot of them are older. They don't know how to work the registration stuff. Half the time I have to ask, okay, are you guys still doing online? Are you doing this? And so Michelle talked about how she meets the kids at school with their grandparents, make sure that they have help with filling out paperwork, that they know how to navigate for high schoolers, middle schoolers online, that we're just accessible for them so that they feel successful and the children are feeling successful and ready for school. So this is a whole new ball game. Tons and tons of grandparents, even on my caseload, are taking guardianship of their grandchildren. And so, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Dawn, the awesome part too is that you get to stick with those kids for a little while after somebody takes guardianship or a case closes with DCFS or something along those lines too, right?
Yeah, we do. Like, say they, they end up taking, they have guardianship, but say they end up adopting them too. We get to work with them until the rest of the year. And so it's really cool to see that. I've been to adoptions. Luis, I think, is on here. We shared a family and we got to do that. And so, I just feel like just helping them navigate the school and answer questions and offer school supplies to these grandparents for their kids, just anything that we can do to help them feel successful. This is a huge, I couldn't imagine taking on grandchildren and raising them. Raising my children was hard enough. So those were just some of our ideas.
Yeah, no, I think those are great ideas, great specific strategies. And I know that when I worked at DCFS, that last little while, I was a supervisor out in Tooele, and you asked Kelly Russell, I don't think she's here today, which is weird because she's usually here, how often I called her, right, as the extended family, the extended family to that child, maybe as the professional. Anyway, reached out to her, just, I'm lost, help me figure this out. And just being available to all those people that are connecting to the child, it goes a long way. You really matter. What you do really matters. Any other comments about that before we move on? Annie, did you have something?
Yeah, I have a question. I know it's kind of weird.
Sure.
Okay, this boy, it's right in my head. They were telling me he doesn't have a room to sleep in because when he left, they filled his room up and turned it into a craft room. So here he is, he's been in this house for at least a month. He still doesn't have a bedroom. And so they were kind of wrangling back and forth about whose fault it was, get in there and move the stuff out and create yourself a room. And I thought, how much family engagement am I allowed to entertain? Am I allowed to say, hey, I'll come over and I'll help you move the stuff out of your room. Let's see if we can turn this into a great place for you to be. It's so hard for them. They don't own anything. And then to go to a home and then still don't own anything. They don't even have a place where they could just, go and sleep. And I don't even know what he's sleeping in. I don't know. I didn't get information. So how much engagement is okay? That's a question I got to ask.
Well, this is what I would say. I think the best way to engage with that would be, and as long as your LEA, your school district allows it, attend that child and family team meeting and engage as much as you're able, right? If you're talking about a bedroom, voice the concerns that you're having at school and that he's frustrated, and offer to help. Do a home visit, go and give some ideas of how you can maybe make that room better. There's a fine line, right, of stepping on toes.
Yeah.
Or doing things beyond maybe what your director would say you're able to do, right? I know some school districts aren't allowed to do home visits, others are. And so I would just talk to your supervisor about it and see how engaged you can get into that situation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I hope that's helpful. But I think at the very least, attending that team meeting where you can voice some of those concerns and maybe as a team talk about what can happen to better support that child in the home.
Thanks.
Yeah, there's all sorts of scenarios, right? Like, you can't write this stuff often. All right, anybody would give a different answer to that? Any of my directors out here, Nacho or Travis? You don't have to speak up, but I just want to make sure I answered that appropriately for what you as a director would suggest. Okay, there is a fifth puzzle piece to this, and we didn't have a breakout group talking about fidelity of implementation. This is just, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but this is my soapbox, right? Our kids, as you know, and as Colette suggested, they move on, whether it's because they're going home or they're seeing success or because they blew a placement or because the placement blew the kid, right? Our kids move. And the fidelity of implementation throughout the state is so crucial so that as that student goes from place to place, there is some consistency, even if it's not the same person, but it's the same program, that they know I'm going to have a mentor in Weber, and then I'm going to move to Granite, and I'm still going to have a mentor. There's going to be somebody ready to receive me. Fidelity of implementation is so important. We're gonna enter. Sorry, I became a host, so now I get to admit people. That's fun. So just know that transitions for our students, they happen often. And if we can practice, check, and connect to fidelity, it's going to better serve our youth. And I'm also going to suggest, Colette, as you lose that child, connect them to the next one, right? Learn who is going to be their mentor in their next school district, and then connect them person to person. Just like you would go to the school to help that family enroll, like we heard about. Let's connect them with people. So we don't lose those kids, but that fidelity of implementation is huge. And that's going to take us just into another quick conversation, which Benji will just expound upon later, talking about data. We have seen more fidelity to the program in the last couple of years since Amanda came on board, because we're getting your data. We're able to see what you're doing across the state is working. We're able to see that we are checking, we are connecting, and we are transitioning really well for the most part. Always can we do better? Of course. But that data reporting really helps us to understand how we can continue to make mentoring even better, right? And as we transition kids from program to program, that there's some consistency and some normalcy in that. And Amanda, if you'll go to that next slide, here's just a few data points that we've been able to collect with what you've given us, and we have plans to use this data in an even greater way that Benji will talk to you about in a bit. But I like this slide. I'm gonna have to make it bigger on my screen. It's pretty awesome. If you see this, like, we have had an increase in number of students, a decrease in number of mentors, but then we've been training more mentors. It's a really interesting phenomenon that we've had going on. But what I want you to know from this data, from the data that you give us and from some of these statistics, is check and connect and mentoring is catching fire. People want it. I get calls from legislators on the regular. Talk to me more about check and connect. I get calls from administrators. Talk to me more about check and connect. And I love it. It's exciting. What you're doing is exciting, and it's catching fire, and we're going to see it expanding. And we're already doing some of it, and it's just going to get greater and greater because of the foundation that you're creating and that we're able to gather from your data to help this program continue to be built, and hopefully with fidelity, so nobody screws up the good work that you're doing. All right, we have this last video that I'm going to share before I turn the time over. It's another 4.5 minute video. I went back and forth on whether to share this or not, but it is so awesome. And there are so many things that are said in this video that just, like, I wrote them down, and I was like, I need to remember these phrases. So watch this video, think about your why, think about the job that you get to do as mentors. Write down a couple of these things, and before I pass it on, I'd love to hear some of those things that stand out to you. Go ahead, Amanda.
Some kids don't have their dad or their moms there that can help them.
As a mom, I was feeling very vulnerable and scared.
Growing up with my mom, single mom, so she always had to like work. It was just not a lot of like family time.
These young kids, I mean, there's so much in the streets right now that if they don't have positive role models or someone to tell them right from wrong, it's so easy for them to go down the wrong road.
I was able to provide a place for my children to live, but it wasn't that great of a place. You know, we had a roof over our head, food in our stomach and everything like that, the basics, but it was scary for them to go outside.
My oldest son, Aloy, was very angry. I was in a very abusive relationship with their dad, and he was unfortunate enough to be the oldest one to see what was going on, so he had a lot of anger. You know, the things that they seen at home, like the domestic violence and stuff. My second son, he was bad. He ended up, you know, being in the system and everything for his behavior problem.
My mom and my dad got divorced when I was young, and I didn't understand. I didn't understand what divorce was, but I just understood that my dad wasn't coming home anymore.
I got real sick in 2012. I lost my sight. I couldn't take care of myself, could barely move, walk, talk, could do anything. It was my oldest son's senior year, so, you know, I really didn't get to do nothing, none of that. He had a problem with fighting in school. So that's what prompted one of the teachers to try to get him involved with a mentor.
Jennifer came into my life, and it makes me like kind of emotional right now. She just like rescued me.
The impact that you'll make on just that one person with that investment of time is something that can't be measured financially. That impact is something that's going to stay with that mentee for the rest of their life.
I learned to believe in myself through him. He gave me that courage. I had someone who supported me.
Keith was the light switch for Aloye. He played a huge part in his life. You know, I couldn't do things for my children. Their mentors was there for him, and is still there for him.
She's grown into like my best friend, and then she became like my family.
It's a big difference. My oldest son, he on honor roll. Cedric, he graduated on time. My youngest son's on his last year of high school. He's made the dean's list. You know, he's looking forward to going to college and playing football. He has all these dreams that I just don't think he would have ever thought he could even accomplish if it had not had been for Save Our Youth.
Just bringing joy into someone's life, you know. So why wouldn't you want to be a mentor? It's great.
There's a lot of kids out there that could benefit from your help.
Every child needs someone to help them.
That need is tremendous.
I was scared of heights, and she got me to try new things.
And I'm a witness with my sons. They don't know how much of an impact they can actually make in someone's life.
Boosted me out of like, you know, my shell. I was like, oh my gosh.
Changed my life from being the kid that didn't want to school to now going to college.
I think everybody should be a mentor.
Thanks, Amanda. Okay. Anything in that video that inspired you or that stood out to you, or a phrase that you had to write down?
I liked the guy said that it's the impact that we make isn't measurable. I mean, we have, the data and we have all that stuff, but you can't measure the impact of the change. Whatever you do for that kid, you can't measure that other than, we have our data, but the other stuff.
Yeah. And that's an unfortunate truth, right? I wish I could capture every individual student's just outcome or personal belief in their mentor. I'm trying to think of how we can do that. But you're right, it's immeasurable even. Not just that you can't measure, but it's immeasurable. You don't even know the impact that you can possibly have a kid on a kid. And you might not see immediate results, but years later, it can continually impact them for the positive. What else? Any other comments or things that stood out to you? You can type it in the chat too, if you like. One thing that I loved is one of the moms said, they were the light switch. I love that. Have you ever thought of yourself as a light switch? Let's just, you're turning lights on all the time, folks. That's what you're doing. You're the light switch. I love that. That first statement, when it went from like the negative to the positive, right? That young girl that said, she just rescued me so sincerely. We're rescuers, we're life preservers in some ways. Anything else? I mean, I have a whole bunch of things listed, but I guess I'm presenting, so I get to say whatever I want. Annie, did you have something?
Yes. I was worried that I'm making the right choices in getting involved. I mean, I'm so much a hands-on person. I've got 33 grandkids and I'm used to just being involved in everything. And I even told that kid, I said, think of me like your grandma. I'm going to talk about things you're not doing well and talk to you about how we can figure out this together. And I said, I am your advocate, but I'm going to teach you how to advocate as well. But I'm hearing all these people talk about things that they do, and I'm hesitant. I wish somebody gave me some more guidelines on, how far can I push? How far can I go into these things? And like I had one girl, I talked to her for 2 years and finally she just emptied everything out. And I went, holy cow, it was like being fire hosed. All this stuff she could have talked to me about, but how is it that I didn't make that connection enough for her to, as it happened, say, this is what's happening. So we could have talked about it. So I'd like to have some more information from people who are, how are they, how are you doing this? I'm trying. I love the job and I love these kids, but how do you know how far is too far?
Yeah. And I'm going to allow people to answer your question, but I just want you to know, like, people do amazing things. Our mentors do amazing things. So as long as you understand what parameters your LEA gives you, I would say, go for it, right? Let's hear from how others would. It's not always roses and butterflies, right? This is a hurrah day today. But it doesn't mean that those hard things aren't happening too, right? Or that we're not connecting as quick as we might like to. But the fact that you got there is pretty impressive to me. Sorry, let's go back. Let's open it up to your colleagues here, how they would answer, like, where are your limits? How far can you push things? Or what have you done?
The only caution I would share is the idea that there are some limitations to what we do, because our lane is the school lane, right? Public school lane. And I think Julia was very wise in sharing that anything that falls outside of that lane, things that we think we control and kind of influence within school through networks and relationships and opportunities, should be navigated through the child and family team meeting. That's a great way to get a feel for how far the system is willing to push and how far the system will engage a student or engage a guardian or engage a foster or proctor family. So that would be just some thoughts, my thoughts.
Yeah. Because there are all of these students come with a team, right? And so it doesn't always have to be you, as much as I know that you want to be that person, right? Sometimes it's just connecting or just being the voice of, this is what I'm hearing at school. How, team, are you going to support that situation? So
I think something
thanks,
I would add
Travis.
is to remember that the connection piece isn't always the connection just to you.
Right.
The connection is, where can I find other resources to connect the family to, or even the caseworker, something within the school district that the caseworker may not be. You're that connection little piece to connect to other things, and you don't need to take on all of it.
Yep.
You find the appropriate place for those services and connect the two. You're just that little piece in the middle sometimes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And going back to that, conversation we had with Amanda earlier is we also have to kind of take care of ourselves. If we take on too much and we carry the whole burden ourselves and we don't allow others to get a piece of the pie, it can drain you too, right? So thank you for that comment, iPhone 109. I appreciate that, because I think that's super important for us to recognize. We also had a comment in the chat. We can provide a lot of information, resources students and families may not be aware of, which can provide relief, right? Just even that example we heard earlier from Jesse, who would have thought you could extend grades past the deadline, right? Those are resources no one would think were even available, but she was able to make those connections and make that impact in that student's life. So thank you for that comment. All right, I'm excited for this year. I'm excited for what we're going to do. I'm excited for what's coming to support you as mentors. And I'm gonna end my little rant here and pass it on to Amanda, who's gonna let you know what's coming up, and then you'll get to hear from our fearless leader, Benji. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Julia. Sorry, multiple screens and trying to find the mute button is always entertainment here. So just as a reminder of the mentor supports that we offer, I wanted to do a couple slides here. So I hope you all got the email from me about 3 weeks ago. That was the announcement for not only today's webinar, but the Check and Connect training registration was open. And as you can see on your screen here, we have the 3 different types of training that me and the other locally certified trainers offer. If you want to take a screenshot, the registration website is there at the bottom, or you're always welcome to contact me. I did include it in the email, but just as a reminder, the registration process is a little different this year. So first you have to verify that you have a program, and then verify your administrator's been trained before you can sign yourself up. So if you get hung up in any of those steps, just give me a holler and I'm happy to help you through. In addition to the Check and Connect trainings, we have webinars like today. So here is a list of the remaining webinars for the school year. I sent this out, I think, in May of last year, and each month you'll get an invitation from me, but here is the full list of webinars for the school year. We have lots of fantastic presentations lined up. Next month, we're going to hear about DBT skills and suicide prevention, just as a little teaser for next month. Okay, and in addition to those 2 things, this is another item I thought that would be good professional learning for mentors and youth and custody staff. So it's the Utah Alternative Education Association Conference, which is UAEA. That's going to be in the spring in March, on March 10th. And they're looking in the northern Wasatch Front area, and it's typically held at a school. So just as a FYI. And right now they do, what's that? Go ahead.
It's going to be held at Valley High School.
Perfect. So there you go. Valley High on March 10th, friends. I got to go to this conference for the first time last year, thankfully, because I also got Benji as part of our team, and he brought UAEA into my world. And I was so impressed with the conference and enjoyed every breakout session that I went to. So this is something that I will be attending again in the spring, and found some good professional learning, and I think you all will as well. And I think, oh, one more for me, almost, and then I'll turn time over to Benji. So another item I wanted to cover today is we're about to start the youth in custody supplemental application process. And Travis and some of our other directors are very familiar, but I don't know that mentors are as familiar. The point of this is, if you all need supplies to do your job, now is the time to be talking to your youth in custody director. And that may not be your direct supervisor, but you might want to work through your supervisor. But each school district has a youth in custody director. And if you need to know who that is, just holler at me and I'll make sure you have their information. But just go ahead and get those requests into them for anything you need this school year. As you can see pictured here, I had some ideas for you. I know if anybody's been to a training with me, they know I can't live without my rolling kit. I think they are a necessity. So I just wanted to remind everybody that we're about to start that process for the school year. Now I will turn the time over to Benji, and then when he's done talking about this, I'll hop back on to wrap up for us.
Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, the supplemental grant time is Travis's favorite. It's like Christmas for Travis. He just gets to just ask for all the money, and maybe we'll give him some. We'll see. So what I wanted to just take a moment to connect with all of you on is we did have a little bit of carryover money from this last fiscal year, and I requested that we have some of that money be used to engage in a data project specific to Check and Connect. As has been mentioned in this, there has been a lot of attention to mentoring right now. That's been a big discussion item on how do we support students, and mentoring has been something that's come to the forefront with that. And so because of that, there's been a lot of attention to Check and Connect, because as people have discussed it and said, well, do we have any mentor programs? Well, yeah, we have about 75, 80 Check and Connect mentors in the YIC program right now. And so that's why Julia and Amanda have been getting a lot of calls from legislators and different people. I've been in meetings as well where that's come up. And so because of that, I wanted to set aside some money, and we're going to be put out an RFP process to hire a researcher to come in and really take a deep dive into the effectiveness of Check and Connect right now. And so with that, kind of the scope of the project will be initially to do a pretty intensive data analysis project to see how all of that is going to be, how all of our interventions and the students that we're working with and the great work that you're doing, what is working really well, and then likely it will show that there are some aspects that are not going well, which is always typical when you're taking a close look at things. And so then the next step with that would be to have some targeted professional learning for us. And so that would take place during these webinars, is that after that analysis, we take a look at the interventions, and if there are some that are not working as effectively, then we'd have some real targeted learning for you all to be able for us to increase our skills and ability so that we can just further help the students that we're working with so closely right now. And so because of this right now, data is just so important. Not that it's ever been unimportant, but I would just at the start of this year really plug and push to really take time to make sure that the data that you're putting in is truly accurate, and so that as we do these data, when we do a data analysis, that we know that we're working with accurate and true numbers, so that we can really look at what is going really well and then what isn't. With that mindset, though, that then we'll know what we can do to help support you all as mentors across the state. So really, please just make sure that you take the time to do that accurately, and then get it into Amanda so that we can so that we'll have that to analyze. And so with that, I just want to say thank you. As was mentioned when I was introduced, I have been the principal of an alternative school for about 7 years, and then a couple years before that was in our youth in custody programs in Ogden School District. And so during that time, I've been able to work very closely with mentors. Jeff and Sheila out in Ogden have been a part of it from really as long as I can remember. I think they're pretty OG in the mentor world. So it was wonderful to work with them directly. When I was over youth in custody at the time, with Sheila in particular, I know that I went out and observed her multiple times, working directly with students and just seeing the impact that she had, being able to have that one-on-one time that is just lost often in a school. When you've got schools of thousands of kids, it's difficult for the teachers and counselors and administrators to be able to have that one-on-one. And so being able to see that happen and see, a kid coming in and I remember Sheila talking to a kid that came in and he wanted to, she was asking about things that he's interested in, and soccer came up with something, and she was like, well, great, soccer tryouts are in a couple weeks. And he was like, well, who do I talk to? Or I don't know anything about that. And so seeing her then being able to connect him with the coach, she walked him right down, had the coach talk to him, introduce him, and then he didn't have cleats. And so then we were able to talk to get some cleats for him. We talked to the counselor said, yep, we have some shoe vouchers, so let's get this kid some cleats and let's do that. And so just seeing, it's these little moments that get lost though in a class of 30 students, and counselors have a ratio of 350 to 1. So the ability to really be able to work closely with kids is lost in most situations, but you have the ability to do that. And I'm so grateful that we've got so many people that are engaged in that and are looking for ways to just have those little moments that make such a huge difference in a kid's world and life and school life. Just the culture that brings just makes a huge deal. And so just to close and thinking for me personally, why it is that I love this work and why it matters to me is that I have always felt that every child should have at least one adult who is irrationally crazy about them. And I try to do that with my own 4 kids, and I've had the experience and the true pleasure of being able to work with kids where some of my students where I've been able to be that person. And the great news is that even if a kid has a parent that is that way with them, they have a teacher that is that way, they have a principal, there's no limit to how many adults can be irrationally crazy about them and be their advocate, be their support. There's no such thing as too many. And so that's why this work is so important to me, and why the Check and Connect program in particular is just such a great way of seeing that happen. So thank you for your work. Thank you for your efforts. And I look forward to seeing you all in future webinars.
Thank you, Benji. Oh, what a lovely conversation today this whole webinar has been, and thank you to Julia. All right, to wrap us up, I have the next step of our pep talks, and then I will share the post-training survey link. So let me share this video for you now.
I learned we all need a pep talk.
I think we all need a pep talk.
I think we all need a pep talk.
We need you. Now, I'm not trying to sound needy, but I'm just saying, we need you. We need every voice. Little voices, shaky voices, any voice looking to spread love. We need the young, we need the people who might have forgotten what it's like to be young. We need the hopeful, we need the hopeless, the usual, and the unusual, because we can't handle any more business as usual. We posted a video on the internet. Brad wrote a pep talk, well, because he needed a pep talk. Now I know what it's like to need a pep talk, so I delivered it. We put it online and realized lots of other people need a pep talk. Teachers, parents, kids, Beyonce, people who aren't Beyonce, more people than I even knew existed. There are people all around you who need reminding, to laugh, to dance. We can remind each other of all the reasons there are to dance, and there's lots of reasons to dance. I mean, if you're looking for them, so look for them, because your dance moves, they're needed, even if they're awkward, especially if they're awkward. Your joy, it's needed. We are little reminders to each other to stay unusual. Whether you're Michael Jordan and you were in Space Jam, or if you're just somebody who's watched Space Jam. A lot, guilty. You are needed. There are people all around you who need reminding, and you can let them know. We can help each other roll on when we can't do things on our own. If this journey has taught us anything, it's taught us that. The little words created out of big love, that can go a long way. So here's to love. Here's to throwing parades for each other. Parties that cheer each other on. Wise friends to light the way. We need reminders that amazing things can happen, because they do, all the time. And one of them is you. We can brighten up every room we enter, every place we go, the entire world. But only if we take care of each other. Together, we're unstoppable. So we gotta stop stopping each other from being unstoppable. That made sense, right? What I'm trying to say is that we got too much goodness to be spread. Pep talks are nice, but they're not a one-time thing. We all need them again from time to time, because people grow. Days pass, times change, challenges come, and we all need little reminders that we're here. Reminders why we're here. The most amazing thing is the fact that we're here together right now. One chapter may be ending, but there's a whole big story that we're telling together. So we'll keep pep talking, and we hope you will too. Sometimes it'll be seen, sometimes it won't, but it always matters. Believe me, I know. Because love changes everything. So let's fill the world with it. Thank you to
I hope you all enjoyed the pep talks today. I know I did. And just know you're all my heroes, and you're going to hear the tremble in my voice because it has made me emotional. But thank you for being my heroes and being the army of mentors out there taking care of our kids. Here's the post-training survey link. And as usual, I will send it in my follow-up email. And thank you so much for taking time out of today. I greatly appreciate Julia and Benji for taking time to present with me. And like Benji said, I look forward to seeing you all in future webinars, as well as the trainings, because I do miss seeing you all in 3D, as I say these days. So thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your day.